we're so glad to see you here today with us. Who was I talking to? Somebody I was talking to right before service said it was so pretty outside, we could have church sitting outside today, right? It was so pretty. The mornings were just beautiful. And I did that for a little while. So, there's this story before we go into meditation. There's this story about a wife waking up her husband on Sunday morning and says, "Honey, you have to get up. You have to get up." "Oh, I don't want to get up. I just want to stay in bed. I want to stay in bed." She said, "You got to get up and go to church." He said, "Oh, I just want to You're the minister. You have to get up." So it was almost, I was holding my little dog this morning. That's the way it felt. So church can be wherever we are. Can be wherever we are. We're grateful to come together. We do this together. And now we're going to have some meditation and feel that energy of togetherness that we feel when we do a joint meditation, a collective meditation. The energy is fillable. You can feel the energy when we do this. So whatever the noise is in the background, cars outside, whatever it is, we can still meditate. We can go in and find the silence of our true being within. And as we usually do, I just invite you to settle in, feel the chair fully supporting your body, and then begin to slow your body and your mind down with some conscious breathing. So let's inhale together. Inhale, hold it for a second, and then exhale fully. And then fully release on the exhale. So inhale again, and fully release. And as you do this conscious breathing, feel your body begin to relax. At the moment I take that first breath, I can feel my body and my mind relaxing into this truth of who we are. The importance of meditation is to remember who and what we are, and it's to practice that being, just to be. One more deep breath in, and then release fully. And as your body has fully settled, as you scan your body with ordinary breathing, just get into a routine of breathing for a few moments. Normal breath. Let your body settle in. If you're holding any tension anywhere in your body, you might scan your awareness, turn your awareness to your shoulders or your face. We hold a lot of tension in our forehead. Relax your forehead. Relax your jaw. And just be. Let your hands rest on your lap. Your arms hanging and supported by your hands on your lap if that's comfortable. Feet flat on the floor. The idea of this is so the body is erect and alert and yet relaxed. This is the position of meditation, to just be fully relaxed and alert. And in these moments we know that we have a body, and yet we choose right now not to move it. And again, breathe deeply and consistently and evenly. And as we've quieted the body, stilled the body, we can quiet the mind. The purpose of meditation is not to stop the thoughts, but to just let them go by, let them drift by. If you get during the meditation, if you get attached to a thought, just release it and come back to the breath. Just release. That's the practice of meditation. The beginner's mind is to release that and just to be. Be. What does that mean for you to just be in this moment? Just be. So I invite you to turn your awareness to that inner place where you intuitively know. You intuitively know this presence that we discuss here in Unity all the time. It lives and moves and has being in us, in each one of us. Where is that spot in you where you know this truth for yourself? And then as we know it for ourselves, we look around and we see that it's true for everyone. And breathe. God, you are. That was the name of the Daniel Nahmont song this morning. God, you are. Every mountain, every ocean, every canyon, God, you are. Can you feel that presence in you right now? God, you are everything in manifestation in my life. God, you are. Breathe that into your being from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. This God presence we're going to talk about today, you can begin right now. What does that mean to you? God present. Is it something outside of you? Something inside of you? I hope it's inside. We can go inside and find that presence. There's really nothing, no separation between us and the divine, between us and God. Set in that sweet, sweet space, that sacred space. The still small voice is the way we communicate to this, whatever name you give it, God, whatever name you choose to call God. We do it through our mind. Peace, be still. So as we enter the silence, listen to this voice in you. This voice in you of peace, be still. In your mind you can know pure peace. For as we enter the silence, we are surrounded by peace, immersed in peace. There is nothing but peace. Calm, quiet, undisturbed peace when we rest in the silence. In the silence. Just for a few moments, rest in the silence. invite you to stay in this sacred space for just another moment. Breathe deeply. Feel that peace that we know that we can find no matter the chaos on the outer, in our outer world, the chaos and confusion. We can always pause in a timeful moment and just be. Feel that God presence that's stirring up in you, within you, as you, moving through you. So now take another deep breath in. And this time you can gently, very gently begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Roll your shoulders if that's comfortable. And then when you're ready, you can open your outer eyes and be fully present in the room. Again, welcome to everyone. I didn't say welcome to the, Melissa and Bob both said welcome to the Facebook, our online audience. And so thank you for being here. And also you can go after the service and watch it on Facebook, or you can watch just the meditation and the talk on our YouTube channel. So we're putting that up on the YouTube channel. So as Melissa introduced, Transcendent and Immanent. This is about God presence. What is God presence? Charles Fillmore has definitely got some opinions about that. He describes it and lets us know that he and Myrtle both are quoted at various places in their writings that God is not a man with manly parts, is the way Myrtle says it. So that's what she says. God is not a man. So the purpose of his writings, really, from all the stuff I've read and what he says, is this to move our consciousness away from this anthropomorphic concept of God. Anthropomorphic, fancy word for a God with skin on it, if you will. So that's really what the Fillmores articulated, along with many other New Thought artists of the 19th century. I mean, New Thought teachers and leaders. I guess they were artists in a way. So that's what they articulated, is God is present within us. They quoted believed the teachings of Jesus, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand and it is within. So that's what they teach. That's the teachings of this. I shared this a couple weeks ago, that the Fillmore invocation really speaks to me. And I'll say that as a way of introducing the concepts of what Charles Fillmore says in this chapter about God presence. I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge thy power and presence, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom now erase from my mortal limitations, from thy substance, from pure love, bring into manifestation my world according to thy perfect law. So what that is an affirmation of God presence as the Holy Spirit working in human consciousness. We can have another whole conversation about the Holy Spirit and what that is. This idea that God is transcendent and immanent. God is, big and personal. This was probably maybe represented. It's all the time. We see this all the time. There was a man in line at the church food table, like we have, we call it snacks or finger foods all the time. So he was in line getting his plate, and there was a bowl of apples, and there was a sign there that said, only one apple, God's watching. And so as he moved down the line, he saw there was a young girl next to him, and she was putting cookies on her plate. And he said, she said to him, she looked up at him and said, take as many cookies as you want. God's watching the apples. The teaching is that God can be known and experienced as immanent, yet we know of this transcendent God, like we saw in that Daniel Nabon song. I can't help but just be awestruck when I see that and hear those words. There's an indescribable and an other that we experience in this world, the transcendent world. When's the last time you experienced the awe and wonder of God? What is that for you, the awe and wonder? So there's so many things that Fillmore, in this writing about God's presence, is trying to tell us about moving us away from the traditional, what we would call in the West, the orthodox Christian belief. They even in their writings, it's not trying to throw, if the orthodox Christian belief is where you are and it's where you need to walk, welcome. We welcome you here. We can have, and we hope that, and that was their intent, is that anything that we say here can be of help in your journey to know who you are and to know God. Fillmore juxtaposes, which is a fancy word for meaning, puts things that are in conflict, seeming conflict, next to each other. So, for example, he says, God is substance. Melissa talked about that. We say that every Sunday. God is substance. But with a disclaimer that if we mean that God is matter, a thing of space or time or condition, we should say that God is substanceless. He startlingly says God is mind, and then mind does not exist, but inheres in all that is, and God is not loving, God is love. But as a mystic, so Charles Fillmore describes these characteristics of God, whatever name you choose to call him, and call this presence. Fillmore attempts to shift our consciousness from limiting rational concepts to perceptions of unlimited transcendent reality. Unlimited transcendent reality. Even so, Fillmore's mysticism is always connected, is ever connected to his metaphysical pragmatism. And what he means by that, what he says over and over and over in his writing, we put these out, these things, these principles, these ideas out there, and this practical metaphysical pragmatism, he tells his students not to accept anything on the basis of someone else's authority, but to judge the teachings based on the practical fruits of what you can do. What you can do. The Fillmore teachings were based on the healing of both Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle, after a period of 3 years, prayed and healed herself she was healed from tuberculosis. Charles Fillmore had a short leg, and it didn't fully grow back by the time he made his transition, but it grew back substantially. So this idea of man, he says this is an interesting concept. Man knows intuitively that, and again, I'm using the language that he does, so forgive me when I say man. That's his writing style from the 1930s, because we know it's all inclusive, mankind or humankind, man and women. He uses the term man to infer to that. Man knows intuitively that he is God's supreme creation and that dominion and power are his, though he does not fully understand. So when I read that, I said, well, what about the animals or the trees or all these other creations that God has? What about that? He's saying that if we, mankind, humankind, fully intuitively know God in us, that we have dominion over everything. And if we have dominion over everything, it's kind of scary, isn't it? Look what we're doing to the planet. So if this creates some angst, it did for me a little bit when I read this again. But this is a truth that we can accept. We don't like to think that we are fully in charge of our own dominion. Even children grope after this to find the truth of their being. Even children. No man knows who, what, and where is God. A little child even asks this as soon as they begin saying mommy and daddy. Who made you? Who made me? Who made the earth, the moon, the sun? God? Then who made God? So my 5.5-year-old great-granddaughter recently, we were just sitting around and she was crying. And she was crying because she said, I miss baby. Baby was I started to put a picture up, but I figured that would be a little too much to start a personal slideshow of my Chihuahua that made her transition the 1st of November last year. 3 pounds, little Chihuahua, and her name was Baby. So this 5.5 little girl said, I miss baby, because she was crying. Now the reason that it's in her mind is I have this Aurora picture frame. It's rotating. My son sent it to me for Christmas. Got all kinds of pictures on it. Well, about the time we got it, a little after baby passed, we got this, and so it's loaded with a plethora of baby pictures. Not baby, baby, the little Chihuahua. So baby went to heaven on November the 7th. So she looked at me and she said, and they call me Bop. I'm telling you this because this is an intimate expression of God or experience of God. This is how we experience God to me. How did baby get to heaven? And then right after that she said, where is heaven? Is it in the sky? Do we fly get on an airplane to get there? And I said, no. She was crying and I miss baby, she kept saying. So children are groping for these truths of their being just like we do. So my granddaughter, Charlotte Grace's mom, was sitting right there. She's in her mid-20s, 25. And she heard Charlotte Grace ask me this question, how do we get to heaven? Where is heaven? And my granddaughter's eyes were about that big. She was looking, because she was wondering what I was going to say, I know. So I answered first by saying, we don't really know how we get to heaven or where it is on her level. I said, we know that we still love baby, and baby loves you right now. Do you know that? Yes, she said. Then I said, heaven is where we go to keep loving each other. So that was it. That's all. She just needed something. Heaven is where we go to keep loving each other. Yeah. So that was her level, that what she needed. And then I looked and my granddaughter went, oh. So the immanence of God. God is personal. The experience, it's personal. It is for me, and I know it is for many of you. And so what we get confused about, I think, is because of our traditional Orthodox teaching is how do we talk to God? How do we listen to God? And language, the problem is language is the limitation of the mind. Therefore, we do not expect the unlimited to leap forward in full expression through the limited mind, the limited thoughts. Words can never fully express that which is God. Remember, discussing God with words in our human way, we are but stating the lisping syllables of the child that which is in its maturity the mind still only faintly grasp. So we're like children, just barely can faintly grasp the mind of God on some days. Yet we may know God and become the vehicle and expression of God, the unlimited fount of life, health, light, and love. We know that experience. We can experience there. God's presence taught by the Fillmores, is letting go of old convictions and ideas of God. And it's the theme of their writings, as I've said before. So again, he says things, Charles Fillmore will teach, and again, if you look at this at the end of the 19th and early 20th century, the race consciousness, we call it collective consciousness, race consciousness, consciousness of everybody, was that for the most part, God was an anthropomorphic being in the sky. And I always use it. I've seen cartoons, you may have seen it with his finger stuck down here stirring things up for us. And then he says God is not loving, God is love, the great heart of the universe of man, from which is drawn forth all feeling, sympathy, emotion, and all that goes to make up the joys of existence. God is love. God's love is pushed out into the universe. God is not loving. Yet God does not love anybody or anything. God is the love in everybody and everything. God is love. Man becomes loving by permitting that which is God to permeate our expression and words in the way we live. And so God is mind. The way we talk to God, the way we communicate to God, and talking is a metaphor in a sense. Communication in the mind is the still small voice. When we stop and listen to the still small voice is when we're listening for God. So Charles Fillmore goes on in this book. By the way, would anybody like a copy of this Charles Fillmore, the Essential Charles Fillmore? Would anybody like a copy? It's free. If you raise your hand. There's one back there. Donna? Okay, there's one. We'll get another one. We'll get you another one. What's your name? Okay, we'll get you another one. And then we have several more of these that were ordered a few years ago. And you can, if you'll give Chris $1, you can, I think we've got maybe 10 of them. You can have it for $1. Just put $1 in the donation basket. I'll be honest with you, these are the book that has preceded that. There is a new version of that book, The Essential Charles Fillmore. It's a paperback, that's a hardback. The only difference is the commentary. Jim Gaither is a minister. It's a commentary, and it's very helpful to try to understand with the commentary. But you can get the same writings of Charles Fillmore in that book, even though it's out of press because they republished it. So if you want one, you can get one for $1, or we'd probably give it to you if the truth be known. The fundamental basis and starting point of practical Christianity, what we call positive practical Christianity, is that of God is principle. And by principle means definite, exact, unchangeable rules of actions on the test that LUTs, License and Unity teachers and ministers take. What is God? The expected answer is God is principle. God is principle. Now, if that means in our mind we think of that God, that means unfeeling or unloving, that's not true. Or unloving nature, that is not true. And that's what many people think when we say God is principle. But there's no reason why that conveys to our minds the idea of an unloving, unfeeling God. It is used because it best describes the unchangelessness, it's a hard word to say, that is inherent, and then the law of being. So it's principle. God is the principle behind all. Yet when I have a conversation with my little granddaughter, that is the intimate expression I experience of God, or they put their hands on my face and say, I love you, Bob. It's intimate. God is transcendent, bigger than any description, and yet personal and intimate. So the fundamental principle, and again, if you will, I think that gets us away from this concept of the God in the sky, of a man in the sky. So God is this little seed through which is brought forth the strong and healthy Christ nature that we talk about so often in our unity teachings. Jesus said, God is spirit. And Paul goes on to say, Apostle Paul says, in him we live and move and have our being. Spirit is not matter. Spirit is not a person. God is life. So I found it very validating today that authors who speak, spiritual authors and teachers who speak the language of unity and new thoughts in their new thought ideas in their teachings, Many of the spiritual teachers today of the 20th and 21st centuries have themes of metaphysical and mystical teachings that were introduced by New Thought leaders in the 19th century. So all of this, I mean, the list goes on. The current list that I just thought about was John Shelby Spong, Richard Rohr, Thomas Merton, Eckhart Tolle, Marcus Borg, John Dominic Crossan, Karen Armstrong, and even former evangelicals like Paul Smith, Rob Bell, Brian McLaren, and many more. You probably got your own list. So each person, each one of us must individually answer the question of God for themselves. The New Thought teachings, the teachings of Charles and Myrtle, and especially the teachings of Charles in this book, God Presence, can help us understand the answer to these perennial questions. They've been around for centuries, millennia. Who, what, and where is God? And we know and believe that God lives and moves and has being in each one of us. Each one of us knows that only the mind of God can know God. God mind. That's what we call God. And again, if you found God in your own mind, you have found the source of health, of freedom, of wisdom that answers all these questions. Only the mind of God can know. Only the mind of God can know God. Be still and know. Know the manifestation of God that you are. Namaste.
Yes, yeah, here we go. Thank you, Ron. Very good. Well done. It's great to see all of you here again this morning. And I always stand up here at the end of the service and try to decide how big a circle can we make. So I'm not sure if we can circle all the chairs. Do you think we can?